Hello everyone, welcome to another video about Resident Evil 4 Remake. In this video, I want to talk about the Mercenaries game mode, focusing mostly on a character review of HUNK. Please note, this is not a detailed walkthrough on how to play the Mercenaries mode or on how to get the highest possible score, but an overview of HUNK and why he's actually stronger than you think. As always, this video contains spoilers and timestamps are in the description. The Mercenaries is an optional game mode in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Your goal is to defeat a certain number of enemies, which is 150 within a limited time frame, and to achieve the highest possible score. There are two factors to consider when calculating the final score. One is the game score, the other is the time bonus. The game score depends heavily on your performance using the Mayhem abilities and keeping up with the combo. For example, getting 150 combo will give you a huge bonus to your game score towards the end. Defeating multiple opponents at the same time, either using your weapons or melee attacks, can also give you a bonus. In order to get more time bonus, you will need to use a knife or melee attacks. If you defeat enemies during the Mayhem mode, you will get even higher score and more time bonus, especially if you hit their weak point. Therefore, performing well using the Mayhem abilities will significantly improve the final score. This minigame is really fun to play around after you have finished the main game series. You can always replay each stage and try to improve on your previous record. However, it can get frustrating when you continue to chase higher and higher game scores. Because of diminishing returns where you need to spend a lot more time reaching the top, sometimes it also requires a significant amount of luck. In total, there are 4 different stages to choose from: the village, the castle, the island, and the docks. Each stage has its own layout, but is generally divided into 2 or more levels, an upper and a lower section. There are these different colored orbs, which are kinda like power-ups located around the map. The green ones give you extra time, and the yellow orbs can recharge the Mayhem gauge. Various item boxes, ammo, and health are also positioned around the map, and it is a good idea to remember where the more useful items are, such as ammo for stronger weapons, flash grenades or heavy grenades, and first aid sprays. These items will be the same for each character and only changes when a different character is selected. You may notice the Mayhem gauge, which is a bar at the bottom of the screen that slowly fills up when you perform certain actions, such as defeating enemies, landing a parry, or getting a quick action dodge. After the gauge is completely filled up, you can then activate the Mayhem mode, giving your character a special ability. This ability changes between different characters and basically works like a temporary power-up, where you can defeat enemies more easily and at the same time giving an extra bonus to the overall game score. The optimal strategy for each stage can be very different depending on the characters you pick, so you may find certain characters that are easier or more enjoyable to play than others. There are 8 characters to choose from: 2 different versions of Leon and Ada, Louis, Krauser, HUNK, and Wesker. Each have their own weapon loadouts, Mayhem abilities, and melee attack options. So, every character has their own strengths and weaknesses. Leon has a balanced set of weapons and a fast melee attack. Ada has arguably stronger weapons and a longer range but slower attack using her gripple gun. Louis can use the dynamite after activating his Mayhem ability. Krauser has the infinite durability knife, and hyper armor if you play Dark Souls, or the resistance to hit stun when using his knife combo. And he can transform into a monster dealing high damage using close quarter attacks. Wesker is able to block basically any attack with his hand and instantly counterattack. He can also teleport around and deal massive damage. HUNK, on the other hand, only has a limited weapon loadout, but an instant kill melee attack and infinite ammo during Mayhem mode. At first glance, HUNK appears to be a relatively weak character, and when I first started playing the Mercenaries mode, I mostly skipped playing HUNK because I did not think he is very strong. Having only one weapon and a melee attack, although really powerful, but he is also really slow at the same time. But after playing him for a little while, I realized HUNK is actually a really strong character. First, let's look at HUNK's weapon loadout. He has a submachine gun, the LE5, which according to the in-game description is a medium-sized submachine gun that has good accuracy and penetration power. A scope can be mounted on top. A boot knife, which has limited durability, some ammo, a first aid spray, and also 3 hand grenades. Because you cannot pick up any new weapons in the Mercenaries mode, HUNK only has one weapon for all the stages. But the stats of the LE5 are really good. It does a decent amount of damage, has a high firing rate, and really good accuracy, making it useful for both close quarters and long-range engagements. It has substantially better stats compared to other similar weapons, such as the TMP from Ada Dress, which has lower ammo capacity, damage, and really bad accuracy. This makes Ada's TMP difficult to use at long range, and this becomes even worse when firing the weapon continuously. Even when comparing to the Chicago Sweeper from Leon, the LE5 is superior in overall stats. Although the weapon has limited hit stun, often creating inconsistent stun locks, its high fire rate more than makes up for this shortcoming. Moreover, the LE5 can pierce through targets, meaning it can hit multiple enemies at the same time. It is also effective against those annoying zealots with wooden shields, able to easily hit stun them through their shields. Unfortunately, the piercing ability does not work against targets with metal armor or shields. Another disadvantage is that the weapon does take a relatively long time to reload, which could leave you vulnerable in certain situations. The 3 extra grenades are useful for crowd control. The boot knife, although having low durability and does limited damage, is still effective against weaker enemies. Also, there are extra boot knives that can be found on each stage, so it may be useful to pick those up early in the game just in case the default knife breaks. One important thing to note is that even though HUNK appears to be cladded in full body armor, typical of a special operations commando, his armor does not appear to offer any extra protection. The damage taken is more or less the same as other characters. The length of the stun lock after being damaged also appears to be unaffected. Therefore, it is still possible to be stun locked into oblivion and die rather easily, especially towards the end of each stage, where enemies become more aggressive. So, the armor and the ballistic helmet appears to be only for aesthetics. It will not save HUNK from instant kill attacks. HUNK's primary melee attack can instantly take down most enemies, even the crazed Chainsaw Man on the 4th stage, the docks. It can also stop normal enemies from transforming into their stronger counterparts. Moreover, this melee attack is more effective at boosting the Mayhem gauge, especially when used against stronger enemies. You can perform this attack by hitting your opponent in their weak point, and when they're stunned, move close for the instant kill. For enemies with high resistance to hit stun, you can also throw a flash grenade and then use the melee attack. However, the instant kill is slow, can only target one enemy at a time, does not work on the Gyarados, and also during the initial wind-up, it can be partly interrupted with certain types of enemy attacks, such as the explosion from the dynamite. The amount of iframe you get towards the end is also limited, and enemies can exploit these weaknesses and deal damage if you're not careful. Despite these shortcomings, it is still by far the strongest melee attack in the game, even better than the melee attack from Krauser, simply because Krauser needs to go into Mayhem mode in order to do the instant kill attack, whilst HUNK can do it without the Mayhem ability. If you shoot your opponent in their legs, it can sometimes cause them to kneel down, and HUNK can perform two different types of melee attacks. One is a kick, the other using a knife blade from his arm. Despite the fact that a knife is used during the melee attack, it does not affect the durability of the boot knife. These melee attacks are not as strong as the instant kill, but they are faster and can hit multiple targets, making them more useful when enemies are bunched up together. But what makes HUNK really powerful is his Mayhem ability, where you get infinite ammo. Combining this with a high fire rate and damage of the LE5, you can take down many enemies without ever needing to worry about the weapon clicking empty, wasting precious time during the Mayhem mode to reposition and then to reload. The high accuracy and good stability of the LE5 also makes aiming easier during continuous firing. On top of this, you don't need to worry about picking up so much ammo from the ground, because even if you're completely out of ammunition, you can simply use the Mayhem ability to get infinite ammo and continue to shoot. Therefore, making this one of the best Mayhem abilities available. Another interesting note is that if HUNK does the instant kill melee attack during Mayhem mode, you can get triple the time bonus as compared to without Mayhem. So in certain situations, you can use this to build up your time score. For example, towards the end of the stage, you can potentially get 18 seconds added time for each kill. So even with this slow attack, it is possible to quickly build up the extra time bonus. You may notice that HUNK's Mayhem gauge charges very slowly, and even after defeating multiple targets using the LE5, the gauge only moves a small amount. That is because the best way to charge up the Mayhem gauge is to parry incoming attacks. And this is where HUNK has a hidden advantage compared to other characters. His Mayhem gauge builds up the same amount with both imperfect and perfect parries. So he gets the same amount of benefit even when the parry is done a little too early. This is different to others, such as Leon, Ada, and Krauser, where perfect parries are more effective at boosting the Mayhem gauge. This difference becomes more noticeable with double or multiple parries. For example, there is an attack from the Zealots using the flail, or the chain mace, where it is possible to land a double parry by quickly tapping the parry button. This effect also applies to successful quick action dodges, usually by hitting the crouch button against certain attacks. So once you get better at parrying and dodging, the Mayhem ability can be quickly recharged, making HUNK overall one of the best characters to play as in the Mercenaries mode. Before I finish the video, I want to give you guys a little bit of history about HUNK in the Resident Evil universe. I will only focus on the main game series and will not talk about any spin-offs, animated series, or the comic books. According to the internet and Reddit, and this is not my interpretation or idea, apparently HUNK is a code name that stands for Human Unit Never Killed. Because unlike other Resident Evil characters such as Krauser or Wesker, he doesn't have any special abilities that grant him superhuman strength or healing. Nevertheless, HUNK is always able to survive very difficult and dangerous missions. This is likely due to a combination of his training, exceptional skills in combat, and luck. He also appears to be cold, silent, and very dedicated to his mission, focusing on reaching the objective even against near impossible odds. His fearlessness, the ability to always accomplish the mission objectives, and simultaneously often being the only survivor in very dangerous situations has earned him the nickname Mr. Death, or the Grim Reaper. Although he is a minor character with very limited role in the main storyline, he has made an appearance in multiple Resident Evil games. We are first introduced to HUNK in the original Resident Evil 2 game back in the late 90s, where he is a playable character as the fourth survivor escaping from Raccoon City. As the leader of Alpha Team, his mission was to retrieve the G-Virus from the Nest facility. Unfortunately, it did not go as planned, and this ultimately led to the events that occurred in the game. In Resident Evil 2 Remake, he returned to the series again as a character in the Fourth Survivor minigame. There was also a special ending or epilogue in the original Resident Evil 3 game or Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, mentioning about him being the only survivor again. HUNK is also a playable character in the Mercenaries mode in both the original Resident Evil 4 game in 2005 and the remake in 2023. However, he was absent in Resident Evil 5, 6, 7, and Resident Evil Village. The official narrative is that HUNK is employed by Umbrella as part of their special operations units. Nevertheless, it is unknown what his true allegiances are. Adding to this mystery, he has almost no interaction with any of the major Resident Evil characters throughout the main game series. Therefore, we don't exactly know what he will do if he encounters the main protagonists in the game. Whether he will assist them, actively going against them, or simply staying neutral and focusing on his own goals. He also does not have much in-game dialogue, except in Resident Evil 2 Remake, in the Fourth Survivor minigame. HUNK's missions are also shrouded in secrecy. There are, however, some minor details about this in a memo found in Resident Evil Code Veronica, addressed to Alfred Ashford, talking about transporting secret cargoes between Umbrella's Antarctica base and Rockford Island. This would indicate that HUNK is trusted by both the Umbrella Corporation and the Ashford family with extremely sensitive and difficult missions. It is unknown exactly what happened to HUNK after the events of Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village. Overall, HUNK is an interesting side character in the Resident Evil universe, and perhaps we will find out more about him in the future series of the game. Anyway, I hope this video has been informative, and see you guys all next time. Bye bye.